some people may get surprised that what is the relation of Buddha with the yoga? Has a Buddha ever used the word yoga? Definitely, in the famous holy book of Dhammapada, there is a verse. It says, Yogaya jayate bhuri, ayoge bhuri sankhayat. That means yoga generates wisdom, and without yoga, wisdom vanishes. So Buddha has talked about yoga, and it's very similar to Patanjali. We all know and all historians agree that Buddha happened 2600 years before. But there is no definite conclusion about Patanjali. So we will not go in the disputed thing whether Patanjali happened before Buddha or after Buddha. But there are very striking similarities between what Buddha taught and what Patanjali taught. So we will go step by step. Just like Patanjali, Buddha also divided his yoga path in 8 limbs. These 8 limbs in Buddha's language, they are called Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappo, Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanto, Samma Ajivo, Samma Vayamo, Samma Sati, and Samma Samadhi. In today's Indian languages, we can say Samyak Drushti, Samyak Sankalp, Samyak Vacha, Samyak Karmant, Samyak Ajivika, Samyak Vyayam, Samyak Smruti, and Samyak Samadhi. So what are these things? Let us study one by one. Sammaditthi. Sammaditthi means harmonious perspective or right view or wise understanding. Different translators have translated Sammaditthi in different terms. Basically, it is to understand how dukkha or suffering or unsatisfactoriness arises, what causes dukkha to arise, how does dukkha cease, and what is the way leading to cessation of the dukkha. So, this is a view to look at dukkha. These 4 things, how dukkha arises, what causes dukkha to arise, how does dukkha cease, and what is the way leading to the cessation of dukkha. These 4 things are also known as 4 noble truths. In Indian languages, it is called Char Arya Satya. Patanjali also has described these 4 noble truths. In Patanjali's language, dukkha is called heya. Dukkha samudaya means the cause of the dukkha. Patanjali calls it hetu. Dukkha nirodh. What Buddha calls dukkha nirodha, Patanjali calls it hana, the cessation of the dukkha. And dukkha nirodha gamini patipada, the way leading to the cessation of the dukkha. Patanjali has called it hanopaya. Buddha has called it dukkha nirodha gamini patipada. It is also known as the noble eightfold path, Ariyo Athangiko Maggo, or in today's Indian languages, it can be called Arya Ashtangika Marga. What is dukkha or heya? So Patanjali has described yoga in only 195 sutras, but Buddha has given over 84,000 discourses, and he has elaborated each and every term in very much detail. So Buddha describes what is dukkha. Birth, taking birth itself is a dukkha. Disease, all types of illnesses, they are dukkha. Death, mrityu, it is dukkha. Company of undesired people, company of undesired things, company of undesired events, company of anything undesired, loss of desired ones, loss of desired people, loss of desired things, loss of relatives, loss of friends, that everything is dukkha. Loss of desired situation, loss of desired post, that is also dukkha. Not getting whatever we want. We generate desires, and when we don't get what we want, then we feel bad. That is also
Sir,
dukkha.
screen I
In
am not able
short,
to
Buddha
see
says,
properly.
Sankhitena pancha upadana
Sir,
khanda dukkha. What is
मधुजी
dukkha in
एक
short? So in short, skandhas, body mind
नाही नाही
complex.
बरोबर
Body
आहे
itself is a
सर त्यांचा
skandha,
प्रॉब्लेम आहे
and the four skandhas of the mind, Vedana,
his personal problem something wrong
Sanya,
with him it
Samskar,
is
and
clear
Vijnana. So these five skandhas, what we call me, myself, or I, that is called body mind complex. The attachment to this body and the mind as a personal thing, that itself is dukkha. Next slide, please. Yeah. No, dukkha. One slide before that. Yeah. Dukkha samudaya. Yeah. Dukkha samudaya or hetu. What is dukkha samudaya? The cause of the dukkha. What is that? The cause of dukkha, Buddha has called it trushna. Craving. In English, it is translated as craving. Craving manifests as a tension in mind-body complex. What is craving? Whether you like something, you are liking, or you don't like something, you are not liking. Both comes under craving. प्यास, कुछ चाहने की प्यास और किसी चीज को दूर करने की प्यास. ठीक है. So the craving includes both things, your likings and your not likings. And whenever we like something or whenever we don't like something, that develops tension in our mind body complex, and that arises along with the dukkha. Next slide. Yes, dukkha nirodha. What is dukkha nirodha or hana? The complete destruction of dukkha, the complete destruction of misery is called dukkha nirodha. In our Indian philosophies, various Indian philosophies, it has different names. Buddha calls it nirvana, Patanjali calls it kaivalya, many people call it mukti, moksha. In English, it is known as salvation, liberation, awakening, enlightenment. In short, it is a release from the cycle of birth and death, because birth itself is dukkha, death is also dukkha. So we have to release ourselves from the cycle of birth and death. That's why we need liberation from all these things, and that is called dukkha nirodha. Next slide. Then how to come out of this dukkha? How to reach nirvana or kaivalya or nibbana? So dukkha nirodha gamini patipada, or Patanjali has called it hanopaya. So Buddha has given again the 8 limbs, eightfold path, noble eightfold path for that. Samma ditti, samma sankappo, samma vacha, samma kammanto, samma ajivo, samma vayamo, samma sati, and samma samadhi. So we already discussed, in today's Indian languages it can be called samyak drushti. Samyak drushti we have just seen. These 4 things we should know, and we should have a view according to that. Then it is called samyak drushti. Samyak sankalp, samyak vacha, samyak karmant, samyak ajivika, samyak vyayam, samyak sati. It is also called smruti. So just like samyak samadhi. Next slide, please. So we have already seen the right view, samyak drushti. Now we will talk about samma sankappo, which is also known as harmonious intention, also translated as right thoughts, and also translated as wise intention. Next slide, please. Samma sankappo. So what are the right thoughts? What are the wise thoughts? What are the harmonious thoughts? Nekkhamma. Nekkhamma means, in Sanskrit it is called Naishkarmya, thoughts of giving up. Thoughts of giving up what we have. Thoughts of giving donation. Thoughts of giving up our ego. Thoughts of giving up our property. Thoughts of living the household's life to become a sannyasi. But basically, during meditation, thoughts of giving up our thoughts as personal thoughts, whatever is happening in our body and mind complex, don't take it personally. Give it up. Whatever disturbs you, you just give it up. Whatever attracts you, you just give it up. Don't think it personally. Don't think that it is my thing. It is my own thing, or it belongs to me. Don't think like that. These thoughts of giving up, these thoughts are called as Nekkhamma thoughts. That is thoughts of giving up. Avihimsa, thoughts of not harming others. Whenever somebody harms us, we feel like harming the person. We want to take revenge. But those are not right thoughts. According to Buddha, those thoughts lead to misery. So we should think of not harming others. Third type of right thoughts are avyapada. There are thoughts of pure love. We will not harm others, but we will love others. Instead of taking something from others, we always want to give something to other people. So it is called avyapada, thoughts of pure love. The next limb of yoga, as taught by the Buddha, is sammavacha, samyak vani, which is also known as harmonious communication or right speech or wise speech. So even in Patanjali, we have seen the Satya as a yama. So it is just like Patanjali's Satya Yama, our speech should be right speech. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, Samma Vacha, not to speak lies, not to use harsh words, not to do backbiting, not to do useless talk. So Samma Vacha is not only just speaking the truth, but it is also not to use harsh words, not to do backbiting. We should not break friendship of two people by telling something against each other to everybody. Not to do useless talk. Many times we waste our time in talking something which is not useful to anybody. So Buddha does not want us to waste our time. He wants us to do only useful talk. Next slide, please. Now, Samma Vacha. Shall we always speak truth without caring how others will feel, or even if others are harmed or hurt? No, that is not right speech. Many times we say, "मग काय झालं? खरं बोललं की राग आला त्याला." Whatever I spoke because it was truth. But many times, truth is not pleasant to others. Truth is not useful also. So, talking every time truth without seeing the event, without judging the situation, that is also not right speech. Next slide, please. So there are certain conditions of right speech. First condition is, if truth is helpful to all, those who are present, you are speaking the truth, and some people are present there. If that truth is helpful to all and is desirable to all, pleasant to all, speak it at right time. Every time is not right time to speak the truth. So you have to see the situation, you have to see the event, and then you have to speak the truth. If truth is harmful to somebody, but liked by some, never speak it. So there are certain types of truth which may be pleasant to somebody, but they are harmful to others. Like you have gone to see a patient and you know that patient is going to die within half an hour or within 1 or 2 days, and you say it in front of somebody, you are going to die. So it's not necessary to speak that truth. There is no need to speak that truth. The person may die earlier than he was going to die. So it's better don't speak such truths. If truth is harmful to somebody, not pleasant to anybody, never speak it. Okay, there may be certain things which are true, but they may be harmful, not pleasant to anybody. A cow is going from in front of you, and one cow slaughter comes there, and he asks you, where has the cow gone? Then you can keep silent. You don't need to lie. You just keep silent or change the subject. Like that, you can avoid using or speaking harmful truths. If truth is unpleasant but helpful, there are certain truths which are unpleasant, but they are helpful. So, you know, there is a friend of yours, you know, there are some bad things in him, and you want to tell him that your friend has to improve, he has such bad qualities, then don't speak those about those bad qualities in public. You can take your friend in private, see his mood, and then you can talk to him about his bad qualities. So unpleasant true things, they can be told choosing the right time. You have to choose the right time, right place. You have to see the mood of the person, and then you can speak the unpleasant truths. Like that, these are the conditions of right speech. Next slide, please. Then, when can we say that the statement, if any statement is pleasant and harmful and untrue, never speak it. If any statement is unpleasant and untrue, never speak it. Buddha does not consider any untrue statement as helpful, whether pleasant or unpleasant. When can we say that the speech has been false? Many times we speak and then we feel that we have not spoken the right thing. So Buddha has given conditions where we can say that this was a false speech. Condition number 1 is the statement must be untrue. Second condition is one must intend to deceive another. Your intention must be to deceive somebody. One must try to deceive another. After that, having that intention in the mind, you must act. Means you must speak to deceive that person. The other person must understand the meaning of what is said. It is not necessary that they should believe what is said. If these 4 factors are fulfilled, the 4th precept, Buddha has given 5 precepts. It's not to steal. Third precept is not to commit sexual misconduct. And this 4th precept is violated and should be taken again. Then Buddha has given again some additional precepts in which it comes divisive speech. 4 factors of divisive speech. When can we say that we have spoken a divisive speech? So there are 4 conditions for that. First condition is there must be persons to be disunited. There must be an intention to disunite those 2 persons. There must be an effort made as a result of the said intention. The other must know the meaning of the thing said. So there is a question that there is a court case and one has to give witness in the witness box, and that truth may be harmful to somebody else. Listen, what is the definition of harmful? Getting a legal penalty or getting a legal punishment is not harm. If somebody has committed a wrong, he should be getting legal punishment. So there is no harm in giving the right witness. Okay. Harm, where Buddha speaks, when Buddha speaks of harm, the harm is spiritual harm. Okay.
Okay.
But if you feel and if you want to save the person who has committed punishment, and you want to improve that person, then you can also keep silent in the court, and you can find other ways to improve that person. But don't speak lies. Buddha never said that speak truth all the time, but he says that don't speak lies. If truth is harmful to somebody, you can keep silent always. Okay. Then we were talking about, please, previous slide, we have not finished that, I think. Previous slide, yes. 4 factors of divisive speech. There must be persons to be disunited. There must be an intention to disunite 2 persons. There must be an effort made as a result of the said intention. The other must know the meaning of the things said. If these factors are fulfilled, the 5th precept is violated and shall be taken again. And again, next slide, please. The 3 factors of abusive speech. So abuses, sometimes we abuse by love also. So that is not abuse by speech. Like the mother says to son, "Are nalayak, are katya," or the friend says to friend, "Are haramkhor." So that is not abusive speech. So what is abusive speech? There must be someone to be abused. One must be angry. Abusive language must actually be used. If these factors are fulfilled, the 6th precept is violated and shall be taken again. Next slide, please. Sammavacha. 2 factors of idle chatter. So useless talk. What is useless talk? There must be an intention to say things that bring forth no benefits. Such things must be said. If these factors are fulfilled, the 7th precept of not talking useless talk is violated and should be taken again. Things which bring forth no good benefits means such plays and novels as are merely intended to amuse and entertain. Nowadays, there are numerous plays and novels satisfying all these conditions of useless talk. So even if you write a novel or even if you write a play, there should be an intention to give something through that. You should not just write a play or write a novel just for entertainment of the people or amuse just to waste the time of the people. There has to be an intention, some message through that play or novel. That's what Buddha is saying. Next slide, please. So all these factors of Sammavacha, the above mentioned factors of false speech, divisive speech, and idle speech, they relate only to the violation of the respective precepts. They become conditions for karma that leads to rebirths in the lower planes only if following factors are added. Okay, if somebody believes in lower planes rebirth, then Buddha says about this. In the case of false speech, another person must suffer loss or damage from that false speech. Then the person who speaks false speech will go to the lower planes, that is Narak or Pashiyoni or Pretyoni, like that. In the case of divisive speech, disunion must result. If you break the friendship of 2 people, then you can go to the lower realms like Niray Loka, Pashu Loka, Pret Loka, Asur Loka. In the case of idle chatter, useless talk, other must think that the idle speech is true. In the case of four remaining precepts, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and abusive speech, the above factors relate not only to the violation of the precepts, but also to the respective karma that leads to rebirth in the lower realms. So, Buddha has made distinction between these four remaining precepts and the above three precepts of false speech, divisive speech, and idle chatter. Just by false speech or just by divisive speech or just by useless talk, you will not go to Narak. But if some harm is caused to other person by this false speech, divisive speech, and useless speech, then there is a chance that you can go to Narak by breaking these precepts. Next slide, please. Now we go to the bodily karma. We have talked about karma by speech. Now we go to samma kammanto, that is also known as harmonious movement or wise action or right action. These are different translations made by different translators. Let us go to next slide. Samma kammanto. So there are four types of right actions. Not to kill sentient beings. So this is a very important thing. Sentient beings. Many people ask, plants are also living beings. The viruses, the bacteria, the protozoa, they are also living beings. So how can you use antibiotics, antibiotic injections, antibiotic tablets? How can we cut the plants and eat the food? So Buddha has used the word here, sentient beings. Sentient beings means they have the karma producing ability, the mental karma. The plants may have some type of consciousness, but they do not produce karma, which can result in suffering. Similarly, viruses, bacteria. So, not to kill sentient beings. That means not to kill beings which are living and which can produce the karma. Second right action is not to take what is not given. So it is just not a stealing, but whichever thing is there and which is not given to you, you should not take that. Something is lying on the road, some note of a rupee, note of 500 rupees lying on the road, you should not take that. You should not take also credit which is not given to you. Write a play or you copy a post, Facebook post, and you take its credit, or you copy a YouTube video and you take its credit which is not given to you. So that also comes under this precept. Not to commit sexual misconduct. We will see in detail what is sexual misconduct in coming slides. And not to consume intoxicants. So these are the four types of right actions. Next slide, please. So samma kammanto. So what is the factor for killing? What are the 5 factors for killing? When we can say that we have broken the precept of not to kill, there must be a live sentient being. One must know that it is alive. One must have intention to cause its death. Many times doctors perform operation and the patient is dead. So at that time, doctor does not have the intention to kill the patient. So we should not consider that action of doctor as killing. Fourth condition is an action must be done to cause death. Fifth condition is its death must follow from that action. So if these 5 conditions are fulfilled, the first precept of not killing, even in Patanjali, ahimsa is the first precept. So like that, even in Buddha's teaching, the first precept is not to kill. So if all these conditions are present, then we can say that first precept is violated. Just by you are walking and an ant is killed without your intention, so that is not considered as violation of the first precept. So Buddha is very kind and care to us. He has given all these conditions. Next slide, please. So 5 factors for stealing. The property must belong to another person. One must know that property belongs to another person. One must have intention to take it. One must act to take it. The property must be taken by that act. If all these 5 conditions are fulfilled, then we can say that the precept of asteya, what Patanjali calls asteya, that has happened. Sometimes what happens that we don't know that the thing belongs to another person, and by mistake we may use it. So that is not called stealing. And whatever is not given to you, you must not take it. Sometimes we are in our office, we take many things, use it because it is available to us and it is in front of us. So that is also not good. That also comes under breaking of asteya. Next slide, please. So now, very important, the 4 factors of sexual misconduct. There must be a man or a woman with whom it is improper to have a sexual intercourse. So who are these types of men and women with whom it is improper to have sexual intercourse? So there must be a man whom you are not married to, or there must be a woman whom you are not married to. Any sexual action out of your marriage, that is considered as breakage of sexual misconduct. One must have intention to have such sexual relations with them. So intention should be to have sexual relation out of your marriage. So the victim of rape is not breaking this precept, because the victim of rape, she does not have the intention to have such sexual relation with the rapist. So she is not considered to have violated this precept. One must strive to have intercourse, and one must consent to the contact of the sexual organs. If all these 4 factors are fulfilled, then you can say that the precept of brahmacharya is broken. Next slide, please. The precept of taking intoxicants. So here the precept is different from aparigraha. Patanjali has given the precept of aparigraha. Here the Buddha has given the precept of not taking intoxicants. Intoxicants that lead to breakage of all type of shilas. If you take alcohol, if you take drugs like charas, ganja, marijuana, that may lead to kill other people, that may lead to lie, that may lead to abusive speech, that may lead to sexual intercourse, that may lead to stealing. So better to remain away from all these intoxicants. Previously there were only 4 precepts. In Jainism they call it chaturayam. But later on it is learned that by taking intoxicants, all these earlier 4 precepts are broken. That's why the 5th precept has been formulated. They say that don't break this 5th precept also, don't take any intoxicants. So this was about the actions of the body. Now, next slide, Buddha talks about right livelihood, samma ajivo, samyak ajivika. We earn our roti, we earn our bread by doing some business or by doing some job. So that livelihood should be right, that occupation should be an wise occupation, and that lifestyle should be a harmonious lifestyle. Next slide, please.
શું બનાવ્યું છે?
Vijayji, next slide. Certain livelihoods, certain occupations, certain professions, they are to be avoided. In the case of laity, refraining from wrong livelihood by means of immortal physical and verbal action. So Buddha has told about some things, that we should not selling weapons, selling livestock, means animals, selling flesh means meat, selling intoxicants, and selling poisons. Remember these 5 things: weapons, livestock, flesh, intoxicants, and poisons. Buddha has told us not to do the business of these things. And what is the reason? The reason is, if somebody purchases weapons, he is going to kill another person. If somebody purchases animals, he may kill that animal. If we do the business of meat or flesh, somebody has to kill that animal first to do the business of flesh or meat. If we sell intoxicants, people are going to get intoxicated and break all the precepts. And we know when somebody breaks the precepts, he disturbs the peace of the society. And if we sell poison, the person may commit suicide, or the person may kill somebody else by poisoning. So these 5 businesses should be avoided. That's what Buddha has said. Next slide, please. So in Samyak Ajivika or Samma Ajiyo, a right livelihood or harmonious lifestyle, there is a big role of right intention. What is your intention? That is very important. A good profession may become wrong profession due to bad intention. Sometimes there are doctors like me, and they have bad intention of earning more money, and they can do wrong things with patient, or unnecessary, they may write wrong prescriptions, unnecessary they will admit patients, unnecessary operations. So even a noble profession like doctor's profession, that also becomes a wrong profession. There are lawyers, there are good lawyers also. I won't say that there are no good lawyers, but there are some lawyers who will always speak lies, and lies. And they are so habituated to speak lie that they will never speak the truth. So even a good profession of lawyership, that also becomes wrong profession. There are some teachers who have bad intention towards their students. They may molest their students. So that also becomes a wrong profession of the teacher. There are shopkeepers who commit adultery with the material. So that also become a wrong profession. So profession itself may be very good, very noble profession. But if your intentions are not good, then those professions also become wrong professions, despite even if this profession is not from the 5 professions which Buddha has told to avoid. So we should be careful. We should always keep checking our mind whether our intention is right in this thing or not. So next slide, please, Vijayji. Samma Vayamo. So now Buddha is slowly going towards meditation. Samyak Vyayam, right effort, wise exercise, or harmonious practice, it is called. By different translators, it is translated like that. Vijayji, next slide, please. Samma Vayamo. So Buddha has described 4 types of right efforts. He says, open your heart and give away all old bad habits. Close your windows of the heart and do not develop new bad habits. Again, open the windows of your heart and let the good habits come in, new good habits. And again, close your windows of your heart and do not allow your already good habits to go out. So these are the 4 types of effort. Give away all bad habits. Yeah. Samma Vayamo. So these 4 good efforts, they are also in the meditation called 6 R's. When you are meditating, your object may be anything. Your object may be Omkar, your object may be some murti of some god, or your object of meditation may be just breathing, or your object of meditation may be Vipassana, Utpreksha, Kayotsarg, Preksha Dhyan, or a flame of a candle, whatever may be the object of your meditation. Whenever the mind runs away in thoughts, it goes away from the object of meditation. You have to recognize the distraction. Recognize that your mind has gone away. That means it is a bad habit. When the mind goes away from the object of the meditation, it is a bad habit. So we recognize that bad habit and you release that distraction. What you do is you take away mind from those thoughts and bring it back to the body and the mind. So that is called releasing the distraction. Third step is relaxing tension. Whenever our mind moves away from object of meditation, it develops a tension in the body. So you have to relax that tension, especially see in the head whether there is any tension and relax that tension. So this way you are giving away old habits and not allowing your mind to develop new bad habits. Then re-smile. Whenever you are meditating, please keep a smile, small Buddha smile on your lips. So that will help you. Smile is very helpful in meditation. There is a research that whenever you smile, the hormone called endorphin, it is released from your pituitary gland and it makes your body and your mind more pleasant. So always keep smiling. Even when you are not meditating, you can keep smiling all the day. Even if you people call you mad, don't bother about it, but always keep smiling. That is very important. So in meditation, it is must. Make it as a backbone of the meditation. You must keep smiling all the time when you are meditating. Then that is a good habit. Develop a new good habit. Return to object of meditation and repeat the habit of good meditation and 6 R's. So these 4 efforts are converted into 6 terms called, each term starts from R: recognize, release, relax, re-smile, return, and repeat. Remember these 6 R's, whatever meditation you are doing. I am not bothered about the object of your meditation, but you must develop these good habits during meditation and you must discard the bad habit of running away from the object of meditation. So that becomes right effort. This is a very, very important slide in today's lecture. Whoever is doing practice of meditation, please remember these 6 R's. You will be very successful in your meditation and you will reach heights of meditation. Next slide, please. Samma Sati. It is also translated as right mindfulness, wise attention, or harmonious observation. In Marathi and Hindi, it can be called Samyak Smruti. Sati is Smruti. Smruti का ही आगे जाके सिमरन हो गया. You know Simran, Smaran. Smaran and Simran. In Punjabi, they call Simran. Okay. So we will not talk about in detail about this Simran. Next slide, please. Samma Sati. So what is mindfulness? What is the definition of mindfulness? There is an American monk called Bhante Vimlaramsi. He has given this definition. To be aware of how mind moves from one object to another. We are sitting in meditation. Our intention is to have our mind on the object of meditation, but it moves from one object to another. The observation of body within body, the observation of feeling within feeling, the observation of mind within mind, the observation of rules of nature in nature. Keeping away like and dislike aside. Liking and disliking is Trishna. So keeping away Trishna aside, ardently and mindfully, you do your meditation. And even when you are not doing meditation, you remain aware of what mind is doing all the time. Because mind has developed bad habits. So you have to remain aware of the mind, what it is doing. Next slide, please. So the last part of Buddha's teaching is Samma Samadhi. Like Patanjali has 8th limb as Samadhi, Buddha also has 8th limb as Samadhi. Right concentration, voice concentration, harmonious collectedness. These are the things called. Some people don't like the word concentration because it gives a sense of too much of tightness. Next slide, please. So there are 4 types of samadhi. Like Patanjali, Buddha has also described these factors of samadhis. There is a vitarka, vichar, priti, sukh, and ekagrata in first level of samadhi. In second level of samadhi, the vitarka and vichara go away, and priti, sukha, and ekagrata. Priti is mental happiness, and sukha is bodily happiness, and ekagrata is your collectedness, if you don't want to call it concentration. In third level of jhana, dhyana is called jhana in Buddha's language. In third level of jhana, there is a sukha, means there is no mental happiness, only bodily happiness, collectedness, and equanimity, samatha. And in the fourth level of jhana, there is only equanimity and collectedness. And when we disroot the trishna, we take away the roots of trishna. From the fourth level of samadhi, we can experience the mukti, moksha, kaivalya, nibbana, and everything. Next slide, please. There are no more slides. Okay. So we have discussed Buddha as yoga as taught by the Buddha. Thanks for your patient hearing. I'm very grateful to the Thane School of